Well, good morning. I hope this video finds you well. It's hard to believe that we've finished the semester. So I wanted to do a video, short video on helping you study for the final exam. And so let's dive right in. So this is the review for the final exam for BIB 224, New Testament Literature and Interpretation. And make sure that before you do the final exam, that you turn in what you can do of the memory verses. So it isn't an either or. Everyone is required to do the memory verse, and if you choose not to do that, then you'll lose the points. So you must do the memory verse before the start of the final exam, and you can write it out on a sheet of paper and upload the image, or you can type it out. The only thing you need to do it in one sitting, so you can't start and then go and study and then go do some more. You have to do it in one sitting, and you have to do it from memory only. And I'm trusting you here, so you sign your name at the end, and I'm going to take that as your word that you did it completely from memory. So make sure that you do what you can on the memory verses and upload that file, because you'll want those points. It's worth 150 points. So, question, obviously you can exempt yourself from the final exam. What do you have to do to exempt yourself from the final exam? Well, one, and this was the agreement, remember, that we made at the beginning of the semester, any student who has attended all the lectures or has watched all the videos will be exempt. So if you've skipped classes and you haven't made those up, then you have to take the final. But if you've missed class for an excused reason and you've watched the videos, then you may qualify. So you have to have watched all the lectures either in person or on video. And you have to have done the homework assignments on time, and you can drop the lowest too. So, if I've allowed you to turn in some late ones, then you have to take the final. So it's only if you did the work and you did it on time. Now you get the 2 drops. So, however many we did total, you get to drop 2 of those. So if you didn't do 2 weeks and that counted as your drop, that's fine. So as long as you did, I think in New Testament Lit, I think we did 14. So as long as you have 12, then you're good to go. And those 12 must average to at least an A. So you have to have at least a 27 average on the homework assignments. So that's one condition. And the second is that you have to score an A on the memory verses. So if you, get at least a 135 out of 150, if you score at least a 90 when you sit down and write it out, and when I score it, you score at least a 90, then you have an A average for the class, and you don't have to take the final. So the exemption from the final is if you've been at all the lectures, or you've watched them online if you had an excused absence, and if 12 out of the 14, I think we did 14, have an A average, you can, do the last 2. There'll be zeros, but they won't count because they're all automatically dropped. So if you have an A average in the homework, you've been to all the classes, and you can say the memory verse, then you don't have to take the final. Now, if you don't meet those conditions, you haven't watched all the classes, or you haven't gotten an A on the homework, or you can't recite the whole thing at least 90%, then you have to take the final. So if you have to take the final, then this is the detail. You have to turn it in by 10 o'clock in the morning on May 5th, and that's Tuesday. So that's the end of that exam time. So you have to turn it in by then. This exam is only from memory, so no notes, no Bible, no just looking at somebody else's exam to see what they say. If you do any of those things, that constitutes plagiarism, and it would be an automatic F. So this is you. This is only you. This is no notes. You're going to pledge at the end that you did it from memory. And if you're a graduating senior, you need to turn it in by 6 p.m. on Friday, May 1st. So what will it look like? Well, if you go to week 14, you'll find this file, the actual final exam file. And when you download it, it will look like this. So you need to put your name on there. You need to have it turned in by 10 a.m. And these will be the questions. So, who is Jesus according to the New Testament? So when you look back at everything we've talked about in this class, from all the lectures, who is Jesus? Now, what this question isn't is, don't go to Google and type in who is Jesus and then start writing down what you find. I want to know that you interacted with the material that we covered in this class. And so perfect answer will discuss Jesus as God, fully God, Jesus is fully man, Jesus is the fulfillment of the Old Testament. In this class, we've talked a lot about how Jesus is the fulfillment of the Old Testament. How is Jesus mediator of the new covenant? What is the new covenant? Talk about Jesus' death as the atoning sacrifice. Jesus' offer of salvation is a real offer. What does it mean to call on the name of the Lord? What is repentance and faith? And it should discuss Jesus as one who empowers Christians through his Spirit to obey the law of God. Now, we talked about all those things in this class. So what this test is testing is, did you pay attention in class when you were there, and what can you remember of what we've talked about in class? All right, so the question will look like this. And basically, I'm looking for about a one-page answer. So if you put, 2 sentences, that's probably not going to be a good test paper. I want you to answer these questions, and I want you to use, use the space. So there are 5 questions. You have 2 hours to do the 5 questions, and so, it's a little over 20 minutes a question. So type that up. You're doing it in one sitting. You're doing it without notes, and it's testing what we've talked about in class. The second question is, what is the New Testament's teaching on salvation/sanctification? Perfect answer will include this. How is someone saved according to the New Testament? What are examples of saving faith? What are the elements of saving faith? What are examples of inadequate faith in the New Testament? Are there people who initially interact with Jesus and then end up not following him? What are some examples of those? Can someone who is truly saved lose their salvation according to the New Testament? And explain a Christocentric view of salvation, sanctification. And what I'm looking for are particularly the things we discussed in this class. We've talked about all these issues in class. And so what I'm testing is, do you understand what was presented in class? And this test is an opportunity for you to demonstrate that. Third question is, what's the relationship of the Old Testament to the New as discussed in this class? Perfect example will have examples of the New Testament interaction with the Old Testament and explanation of some of the connections. My goodness, we talked about this every single day in the class. How is Jesus fulfilling things? How is he fulfilling Passover? How is he the new Adam? How is his empowerment at Pentecost the new Sinai? You could write for days and days and days on this question as we discussed it in class. Fourth is, what's the basic argument and outline of the book of Romans? So Romans has 16 chapters. What are they about? Why did he write it? What is his main argument? What are his main arguments? And remember, focus on the material that we study in this class. And the last question is discuss the kingdom of God and how it relates to whole Bible biblical theology. Perfect example will address following questions. What is the kingdom? How does it relate to the life of the believer now? Will the kingdom triumph? How does Romans 7:22 through 8:14 fit with this answer? And again, use anything that we've done in the class. So I'm looking forward to you succeeding very well on this exam. And thank you very much for taking my class. Of course, at the end of the exam, you'll pledge that you've done it exclusively from memory and that it's only your work. You can't just, I'm just going to look at somebody else to see what they say. That's plagiarism. This is your work, and you're going to pledge after you finish that I did this in 2 hours. I did not look at anything else. I did not look at the internet. I did not look at my notes. This was completely from memory. And I'm going to take you at your word. I'm going to trust you with it. So I wish you all the best. Again, thank you for taking my class, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks.